This is OS, and that's Peppy, the developer behind OS.
We've been busy, as you may have noticed from the length of the changelog.
Last update, Score v2 became Lazer's new scoring system, and Peppy proposed changing the values of accuracy versus combo to better prioritize accuracy, which people liked. But according to the latest community meeting, simply reweighting accuracy and combo isn't actually the best way forward.
When you are close to FC, basically, a single miss has too much weight. It makes sense that the first miss costs more than the other miss.
But you're saying
sure.
maybe it shouldn't cost that much.
Exactly.
So this would be like an alternate way to balance accuracy and combo.
Yeah, pretty much. Just making sure that having a single miss doesn't halve your score, basically. There's been some proposals brought in already since that meeting. I think we'll just be looking at changing the scoring algorithm and getting it out there for people to test out.
Those algorithm changes will happen in the next update or two. For now though, preparations are being made. Any scores imported from stable will now be recalculated. This will cover any pre-existing scores on launch, so you'll see something like this in the corner, and Lazer will automatically process any newly imported scores immediately, with one exception.
We noticed that some were way out, like as if the conversion was applied twice. Turned out to be scores in Smooky's database, which he played on Score v2. So the second change is just flagging the Score v2 ones to be like, we do not need to process these.
Lazer has been trying to achieve feature parity with stable for a while now, and hotkeys are some of the missing components of that. This update brings back F2 to save a replay, and F1 to watch a replay. In the editor, pressing Ctrl-C without anything selected will copy the current timestamp as text, and Ctrl plus these angle bracket buttons will now rotate objects by 90 degrees. As a minor touch, these buttons light up when using the relevant hotkeys. So every ranked beat map follows the ranking criteria, a massive document that covers hundreds of ways maps can be problematic. Many of these criteria are automatically checked in Lazer through the Verify tab, including the newly added Drain Time check.
The last 2 or 3 weeks we've had a huge amount of feedback on the editor, so I think some mapping circles must be getting wind of the fact that Lazer is starting to get usable.
And mappers are also realizing that the way to make Lazer's editor better is letting devs know what sucks about it. So keep doing that. After being silently worked on for a couple months, the new Argon key counter design is here, and with it, the long overdue ability to modify it through the skin editor. So all that's left of the old triangle skin is that like section at the top. When is that changing?
That's like on my short list of stuff I really want to do.
I would hope so, yeah. I think it looks so ugly.
Yeah.
When watching replays in stable, you can hide this overlay by pressing H. The same goes for Lazer with Ctrl H, and this preference is saved as of this update, so you don't need to hide settings every time you open a replay. Lazer aims to be 100% backwards compatible with maps in stable. Well, okay, 99.9% compatible. Aspire maps aren't really worth dealing with. But ranked maps, those shouldn't have issues. Yet this classic DJ Pop map from 2007 has this. Disgusting.
And I was like, that doesn't make much sense, because I basically copied that stacking algorithm across from stable to make sure we got it 100% perfect, right? So I went through it step by step. Well, it turns out the stacking algorithm in stable for V3 or earlier beat maps has actually always been broken. So it's now broken on Lazer as well. Fixed.
Speaking of broken things, the floating fruits mod in Catch isn't broken anymore, and the auto mod on certain maps in Mania can achieve 1 million score again. I'm not even going to try to explain this one. Score v2 broke something. So Lazer has taken a new approach to Taiko hit sounding in this update. Instead of the classic 3 sample banks, Taiko now only has 1 sample bank, and sound samples vary depending on the volume of objects. On top of that, there's now unique samples for hitting big notes, and what devs are calling a flourish sample on some big blue notes.
The classic, yo sound.
And of course, volume ranges and flourish placements will eventually be customizable by mappers. These new sounds were created by Nekodex, the guy who made... Click the circles. Here's his thought process.
So during the research phase, I was trying to figure out what to do with hit sounds for Taiko, and I went through a lot of Taiko maps to get an idea of how mappers were, well, mapping, right? So I noticed in the majority of the cases, mappers were only using 1 bank or sample set for the entire song. So that meant like Taiko gameplay sounded a lot more monotonous relative to other game modes. So I was thinking about ways to spice that up. Even with a drum, like depending on how hard you hit it, the timbre, the character of the sound changes. So like if you hit it softly, it's kind of muffled and doesn't have a lot of high frequency information. If you hit it harder, like more of the high frequencies come through. So I was thinking we could do something similar to that in gameplay.
So as you can tell, this laser update is longer than usual, clocking in at a bit over 140 changes. So let's speedrun a few before getting into the extra technical stuff. In multiplayer, you can now select maps by using this go to beat map thing. The auto skip button actually works now, and if someone forgets to ready up, they'll now be pulled into gameplay instead of stuck in the lobby. In song select, you can now do exact searches with quotations, or even narrow down search to the full search term with an exclamation mark at the end. There's this new results screen layout, which is still work in progress. You'll see more about this in another release. And Lazer's built-in tablet drivers have been updated.
Yeah, we haven't updated that for like 2 years. That was just because they weren't publishing packages. And I think it adds support for something like 30 or 40 new tablets and improves support for about 10 or 20, including some very popular models. So if you ever had issues with your tablet using the built-in setup, give it another try. It'll probably be fixed.
Okay, 2 more last minute changes I forgot to mention. There's a new revert to default button, this arrow here. The old one was this dot, which doesn't even look like a button. And there's a few more notification sounds, also courtesy of Necodex. Here's all of them back to back. That's useless. To close out this changelog, let's talk about the big picture of Lazer. This is an ambitious project. Every release is full of new features, optimizations, and bug fixes, but there's more to it than that. Under the hood of Lazer is an entire game engine built from the ground up.
Yeah, so when we started working on Lazer, we decided that it would be cleaner to split out the game engine portion and the game portion into 2 different projects. And it also means that other people can potentially use the same engine for their own games. And we called that OS Framework.
And each update includes changes to this framework. This one in particular has a lot of framework changes, which are primarily related to improving performance going forward. Performance in Lazer is a hard thing to manage though, because, as I said, Lazer is an ambitious project. It's supported on every platform and operating system, and all of those have their own performance-related requirements. As of right now, one of Peppy's targets is achieving tolerable performance on iOS devices.
I am really sick of hearing from people about test flight being full. Apple has a limit of 10,000 testers at once, and we hit that within like a day. So one of my high priority goals right now is getting Lazer on the App Store. And before we do that, we want it to run well, and it does not run well right now. There's been a push from myself and FrenzyBite to fix iOS performance. A lot of this performance stuff you're seeing in this release was worked on to improve performance on iOS. That's not to say that it's not improving performance on other platforms as well. There's one in particular which I came across which actually removes all the stutters I was experiencing in Lazer to date. We have a lot of ongoing work, and some of the stuff which was supposed to be in this release that actually really helps with performance had to be pulled because it either didn't work well on some devices or it didn't work well on different platforms. So for instance, one of the iOS changes we made actually caused issues on DirectX. This is just how GPU programming is. Like, you have to be very careful not to make a change which is going to adversely affect other engines, other renderers, other platforms. But it's not the end. It's not the end of the line for Android and iOS, which will continue to see performance improvements in the coming releases.
And that's everything for this update. See you next time.